Look at this. This right here is the new Orbea Rise. You guys have had a ton of questions about this bike in particular, so I know you're excited to be here. I know I am. I want to give a big thanks to Jensen USA. You can tell we're not in the Northwest right now. We're actually down here in Southern California visiting Jensen. We went to the headquarters yesterday for the first time ever. That was awesome. It's huge. Speaking of Jensen, they are a dealer for Orbea bikes. They have a bunch of these Rises in stock. I've got a link to them in the YouTube description below. It takes you over to Jensen. Anything you purchase from that link will keep us making these videos and directly support us, so thanks in advance. In addition to Jensen USA, I'm also supported by P&W Components, Industry 9, and Shimano. Over the years, I've done a lot with the brand Ibis Cycles, but in 2021 and moving forwards, I'm no longer an officially sponsored rider. The Rise is kind of different than the other e-bikes I've ridden on this channel. So the Rise is a little bit less travel, but that's not really so much what's different about it. The Rise is a whole new take on e-bikes. It's just a lighter weight, slightly less powerful, but more efficient. More of like a cross-country trail rather than like an enduro freeride style bike. Oh, I see a jump right there. That's what e-bikes are good for. The Rise has a big battery in the down tube of the bike. The motor is the new Shimano EP8, and it is tuned more for efficiency rather than all-out power. Thus far, from pedaling around a little bit, the motor feels incredible. It feels very different than the Bosch and the older Shimano that we've ridden on the past few bikes. I've thrown on a couple of my own personal parts. I threw on my own Industry 9 wheels. And the main reason I did that is so I could have my double down casing tires, front and rear. I did throw on my P&W Components cockpit. I'm running the Range handlebar stem loam grips. And I really wish I had my seat post and my saddle. I don't get along well with the Physique saddle. Beyond that, the bike's XT spec. Most of my own bikes are set up with XT. Let's try this thing out on some of the rocks and some of the sandy dirt here in the high desert. Let's get after it. As you all know, when I post any kind of a review of a bike, I try to put a lot of time on it. That said, this was just a 2-day ride, so I'm gonna just go ahead and post a first impressions thing anyhow. This first spot was a lot of fun. Not a ton of elevation, but look at those rocks. What a fun place to play around. You all very well know that I love to jib around and play with the bike when I'm riding. Well, the relatively lighter weight of the Orbea Rise made it a bit better of a fit for my kind of riding style, and especially so on these flatter trails. Speaking of flatter trails, these trails aren't super fast, so a bike like the Rise that has enough power to get you over some of the stuff on the flatter things means you can kind of do a little more. So when you're riding the Rise and climbing it, there's 3 power modes. Right now I'm in green and green, which is the middle mode. I can go to light yellow and green, which is the boost mode, which is what I've been using for my stunting. Boost mode feels great on this. It kicks in smoothly. It does not have like an out of control explosion of power. Once in the boost mode, the power keeps kicking in for like 1/3 of a second after you finish pedaling, which is a nice little boost off a takeoff or something. So to me, blue feels like I'm riding my Ripmo. It feels like a regular bike. The Rise was sweet. It feels different than the Occam, which I have at home and I've been riding quite a bit. Almost feels like the front end's a little bit longer and maybe even a tad slacker. The geometry felt really good, possibly even a tad better than the Occam. I think tomorrow we're gonna try someplace a little bit more remote, a little bit more maybe deserty. I think the Rise will be in its environment there because it's a pretty epic ride. It's all downhill, right?
It's all downhill.
Okay. Everyone say thanks to Will for giving Logan and I a shuttle up the hill. Thank you so much for the lift.
Yeah, anytime.
Appreciate it. I enjoy the fact that we just shuttled with an e-bike.
That'd be a long time to leave it on an e-bike.
Yeah, that would be the whole battery. Whew. So it's been approximately 36 hours aboard the Orbea Rise here. Whoa, this thing's pretty cool. Woo. I'm used to the Orbea Occam, which I think is like the acoustic, analog, traditional bicycle version of this. But I gotta say, I enjoyed this thing more than the Occam when the trails got really steep. This thing feels just a little bit longer in front, a little bit slacker, but more importantly to me, the whole thing feels torsionally stiffer. Now it is like
12 or 15 pounds heavier than the Occam. And I did notice that weight.
After filming this video, I spoke with an Orbea rep, and he confirmed that the Orbea Rise has the exact same geometry as the Orbea Occam, at least when it comes to the front triangle. The chainstays on the Rise are a few millimeters longer.
On the ride today, we had a little bit of everything. Watch out for that cactus and that rock. I wasn't expecting this, but we found some jumps at the top of the trail, and I was able to get a feel for this thing on jumps, and it's way more natural than the other e-bikes I've ridden. It's easier to get off the ground than a regular e-bike. It's not as easy as any old regular bike, but it's in this like intermediary zone. But the thing is, once you get a full-size e-bike in the air, you're kind of like stuck going in one direction, and then you're gonna smash down. This is so much lighter that you can change directions and manipulate the bike quite a bit more in the air. It could use more volume reduction front and rear, more progression to the suspension for my style, but it's not scary to jump. Like, you can still force it into a landing and pump it when you need to. You're not getting thrown around like you could be on a bigger e-bike. I don't know what speed I was going because there's no speedometer, and I didn't miss that once, but I never once noticed that there was like a draggy sensation when I was going fast and trying to pedal. Whereas on the earlier generation e-bikes, once you're over 20 miles an hour, the motor cuts out and it's super draggy when you do need to pedal. So I really did not like regular e-bikes on like bike park flow jump trails because you can't make them go any faster than 20. You try to pedal and it's like you're pedaling through sand. Didn't have that issue at all on the Occam, and because it's lighter or something, I was able to pump a lot better than I could on the earlier e-bikes. The way the power of this motor is integrated to the bike, it's never really too much. It's a pretty subtle power, but it's enough that you can make it up some pretty steep stuff without getting too deep into your heart rate red zone. And that's kind of one of the coolest things about e-bikes, is just you can keep a more constant heart rate, but do a whole lot more. And that's why they end up being a better workout than a traditional bike. Traditional bike, you'll build more muscle, but you won't get that same cardiovascular exercise. You won't burn as many calories. You're not going to lose as much weight on a traditional bike as on an e-bike, which is why I want something like this for training purposes. Right on. Yeah, nice trail.
Yeah, awesome. Have fun.
You too. Have a good weekend. We didn't have any super long extended climbing today. We had a little sand wash to go through, but I ended up riding the regular pedal bike in the sand wash just so I could talk smack to Logan for the next couple days. I still really like riding my regular pedal bike, and I'll probably prefer my regular pedal bike for a long time. But that's also regional too, depends on where you're riding the most. But I had a great time riding this thing, it was cool. I wouldn't mind adding a Rise to my fleet. Right now in the whole spectrum of e-bikes, this is probably the coolest for most trails where mountain bikes are already riding, whereas the more traditional, longer travel, heavier duty e-bikes are probably better when you're on like the OHV trails where mountain bikes don't normally go, but not many people actually take their bicycles to those trails. So yeah, this is really good.
I think the main reason I prefer the Rise over the Occam for really steep, gnarly trail is the extra stiffness.
Nice. This little bike feels good on the tight single track. This is probably where this bike's designed to excel. Tight, narrower trails like this. This is also where I most enjoy riding.
That larger down tube built to house a battery is way stiffer than the smaller Occam down tube.
I want to give a big thanks to Jensen for loaning me this bike and the van. This van's been sweet. That's too much fun. Jensen's been supporting me for a couple years now, and we just visited their headquarters, and it was really cool. We saw some of the Rises that they have in stock. I'll put a link in the description below, and if you want to learn about the geometry of this, the prices, the build specs and all that, you can do that through my link below over at Jensen. And then if you buy anything at Jensen, it'll help us keep making videos like this. It'll support us, a little commission. Also, shout out to P&W Components, Industry 9, and Shimano. All those guys support me as well. With that said, we're gonna go get some hamburgers. I'll see you guys in the comments. Peace. Oh, fading.